Hi, I'm Greg Dell with Dell Disability Lawyers, joined by attorney Rachel Alters, and we're going to talk about one of Rachel's recently resolved cases, which Rachel, in this case, was an application for a claimant with Unum Disability Insurance Company, the world's largest group disability insurer. And in these videos, we love to talk about how you were able to help the claimant and then provide some tips for people who may be in a similar situation.
Sure.
Give us a little bit of the background of this claim.
Okay, my client, she's a pharmacy manager and she works for the University of Missouri, and she's got a managerial role as well as she also dispenses medications to patients, and she's been working there for quite some time, and she developed a retinal detachment in one of her eyes. She has a history of eye issues, but they weren't severe and she was able to work with them, and then all of a sudden she had a retinal detachment in her right eye. Underwent several surgeries to repair it. The surgeries weren't successful. They're still working on trying to figure other things out. But in the meantime, she's having a very difficult time working in her occupation. She's got a very stressful job, and she's got, obviously big responsibility in dispensing medication to patients. You can't get that wrong. So she went out of work for a very short period of time, and then she did go back, but her doctors put severe restrictions on her. So she can only work a certain amount of time a day, look at a computer screen for a limited amount of time, and only do certain things that she was. She can't do all the things she was able to do before. So she called me because she was concerned that Unum wasn't going to approve this. She'd had a history with them before.
At what point did she contact you? At what point of this claim process?
She called me right before she filed the claim. So she was thinking about filing.
Okay.
She wasn't sure if she would be able to get approved. She didn't know, she had not read her policy, and she was concerned that Unum was going to deny it. So she got my advice, and then I had told her I would help her with the application process to help ensure she would get approved, and that made her more comfortable, and it worked out well.
A lot of people are hesitant to call a lawyer to assist them with the application process. Can you talk about why it's a benefit and not a negative, and why disability insurance companies actually appreciate having a lawyer involved in the application process?
Oh yeah, I would say 9 times out of 10 it's a benefit. Sometimes a client or a claimant can get applied on their own and it's fine and it's easy and they get approved, no problem. But most of the time having an attorney assist you is really beneficial because we know the ins and outs of what the insurance companies like Unum are looking for. So, first of all, I can give you an example of a client who didn't call me for the application process and then ended up being denied and said that he wished that he had called me because he didn't realize that he had to apply at a certain date. His doctor had to put certain dates on the claim form. That didn't happen, and now the insurance company said, listen, this is not, we can't approve this. This, according to our policy terms, you weren't disabled during this time period. So if he had come to me, I would have prepared him a few months in advance and spoken to his doctors and made sure that we had everything in order before the application's filled out. Because once that's filled out, it's set in stone, you can't change it.
In terms of the working relationship, in this case you have with Unum, do they look at it and say, oh, there's a lawyer on this claim, there's something wrong or something to hide, or is it a good business-to-business working relationship?
Yeah, we have a really good working relationship with Unum, and most insurance companies, not only Unum, they actually like to see that we're involved. They've told me this many times because they know that the process will go smoother once we're involved, because a lot of times, the claimants don't know what their rights are, they don't know how to fill out the forms. They don't know how to handle, certain things that come naturally for us that we do on a day-to-day basis. So the insurance companies are usually actually happy to have us.
In this particular case, you've already mentioned that the claimant went back to work, and people watching this are basically saying, like, what do you mean she went back to work, yet she still has a claim? Can you explain how that's happening?
Absolutely. So she actually has 2 different policies. So she has a group policy with Unum, and then she did a buy-up, which is an individual Unum policy to give her some extra income should she become disabled. So the policies are a little different, but essentially the residual policy means that if you cannot work in your full capacity, which means that you can't make at least 80% of your pre-disability income or do most of the stuff that you could do before, the insurance company will pay you, and there's a formula that they will pay. So it's a partial payment usually, or depending on the policy, sometimes they will pay you the full benefit until you can get back to work. So in this case, her income was cut in half because she's only doing half of the job duty she was doing before. So she lost a substantial amount of income. So Unum is actually paying her the full benefit until she can go back to work, assuming that that's going to happen.
And do all of the policies have what's called residual disability coverage?
I would say a majority of the group policies do. Not all individual policies do, because you have to purchase that and they usually cost more. But I always recommend doing that because people don't know if you're going to be going out totally from a job, or whether you're just going to have to reduce your hours for a little while until you get back on your feet. So it's good to have.
And once this client contacted you to assist with the application process, can you talk a little bit specifically about what you did to help make sure her benefits got improved?
Sure. What I did initially was I received her medical records from her so I could look at them to see if I'm Unum and I'm their peer review doctors reviewing them, am I seeing that she has a condition that appears to be severe enough to prevent her from doing all the material duties of her job. So I went through the medical records with her, and then we were in touch. She had multiple doctors, so we were in touch with all of her doctors to make sure that the doctors understood, number one, what her job description is. Because if a doctor doesn't understand what you do, oftentimes they don't fill the forms out properly because they don't know what they're attesting to. So the doctors had to know that she had multiple job duties, including, she was a manager of multiple employees under her. She had to distribute medications. She has to be on a computer screen, 6 to 8 hours a day. And a lot of that, she has to type in a lot of information that they can't increase the size of some of the font. It's very difficult for her to see. And her doctors were also concerned that she was just using one eye for quite some time, and that eye was going to get worse as far as, because the vision in that eye wasn't great either. So we worked with the doctors to make sure they understood what her duties were and what her restrictions and limitations were, and made sure that those attending physician forms were filled out properly, because they can be very complicated to fill out, and some doctors just aren't sure what they're supposed to say. So I work with them closely.
I've handled several claims where people lose vision completely in one eye.
Right.
And some people go, well, you can still see, you have another
Sure.
eye. What were your client's symptoms that were limiting her ability to work effectively with, let's just say, vision in one eye?
Well, she was having, and she still is having, a lot of difficulty because she is using the left eye as her dominant eye, and she's realizing, number one, that she's getting severe headaches by the middle of the day. So what happens is, her eyes obviously compensating and acting as both of her eyes, and she's getting migraine headaches. She can't, once she gets the headaches, they don't go away, and then she can't focus on the rest of her day. So that's a big problem. Right. Also, it's just very difficult to multitask when you only have one eye and it's doing all of the work. And her eye is, she has 20/40 vision in that eye, in the left eye already, so it's not great. And because she's solely relying on that eye, she says she gets blurry vision, she gets dizzy. A lot of things happen to her during the day where, she has a job that she has a big responsibility, so she doesn't want to make any mistakes, and that's what's happening to her. So when Unum approved the claim, they realized that this hopefully won't be a forever issue with her. It could be. But they realize that she's not competently able to work full-time with one eye, considering the other issue she's having.
Right, and we've represented tons of pharmacists, and it is a highly detailed, very stressful type job, because we unfortunately hear about errors that pharmacists make, and you have to be dialed in all the time, because it's not just, people don't realize the duties of what goes on behind the scenes in the pharmacy, how they're mixing medications and filling the bottles and putting the right, making sure the right stuff gets in with the right label while they're processing, hundreds of prescriptions every day.
Right.
And then they're fielding phone calls and interactions with customers, whether they're in a drugstore type environment, trying to answer questions, give, recommendations, and then you have people who, even if the instructions aren't appropriate or whatever. So it's always constant back and forth.
Right.
And they can never get the medicines out fast enough, because there seems to be this endless line at the pharmacy. So you have, and on top of that, they're sitting there half the time with insurance approvals on the phone. You always go see a pharmacist with one hand on the phone and the other hand, talking to a customer or doing something. So it's a nonstop job. Now, Does she have an own occupation definition of disability?
Not in her group policy. The group
Okay.
policy is ONOC for 24 months, and then it will change after 24 months to whether she can do any gainful occupation, and I made her aware of that. I believe the individual policy may be ONOC throughout. It's the individual policy is for less money per month than the group policy, but it will cover her until age 65.
Now, is there any challenges that lay ahead where, because of the fact that she's a younger client
Right.
that you have, that she's basically accommodating her work's accommodating her, and she's making accommodations working in a limited capacity.
Right.
If she gets to the point where she goes, look, I just can't do it anymore, is Unum going to kind of throw it back at her and be like, well, you've been doing it for 6 months, a year, 5 years, what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time with, even when claimants call me off the bat and they say, oh yeah, I've had this medical issue, I've had it for the last 5 years and I've been working and it just really is getting to me and I can't handle it anymore. And the first thing I say to them is, well, if I look at your medical records, am I going to see that your condition, whatever it may be, whether it's an eye issue or another condition like Parkinson's or MS, has your condition progressed to the point where the insurance company is going to say, okay, it's gotten worse. Now there is proof that it's gotten worse. Because if it hasn't, they do use that against you all the time. And they say, hey, you've been able to handle this job for the last 5 years. You've had the same condition. Nothing's changed. So we're not going to approve you for total. And it's a problem.
So
Yeah.
when I work with claimants in that situation, which
Yeah.
are a lot of our claimants go like on a partial residual disability, is I say, look, you've been working in a limited capacity, you're fighting, you're a fighter, you don't want
Right.
to stop working. You probably could stop working, but you don't want to, so you're keeping doing what you're doing. But
Sure.
because of the fact that you kind of can control your own destiny to a certain extent, because you're the one who's suffering and trying to manage your symptoms, we can anticipate this and deal with it. But the way we have to do it is with proper documentation and coordination with your medical staff. And that's part of the advice that we give to claimants, is to work through this process so that when you get to the point where you go, look, I can't take it anymore. I probably should have stopped 6 months or a year ago. I didn't because I didn't
Right.
want to, but at least then we can say to Unum, in a way which we know how to help the claimants document, this is why I stopped and here's the support to support that. But at the end of the day, but for the medical condition taking a major physical objective change, it's really going to come down to the subjective symptoms and complaints of the
Sure.
claimant. So, and that just goes to credibility and proper documentation. So I know that you'll work with your client if the time comes where she doesn't feel she can work any longer. But the reason I asked about the own occupation to the any occupation was, it's not just going to be about her being a pharmacist. It's going to be about any occupation for which she has experience, education, and training.
Right.
But in her world, any job she's going to do is going to require being in front of a computer.
Of course.
It's very hard to think
Right.
of any job right now that doesn't involve, being in
Computer
front of a computer when
Sure.
you're a professional with a degree like her. Because certainly they're not going to say, well, we think you can go be a plumber now. I mean, it's not within the skill set, or go to
Right.
McDonald's and flip burgers. It has to be a reasonable job with some kind of compensatorily reasonable type salary.
Right. The other issue she's going to run into if she does go on total is that now her salary is half of what it was. And that's the salary they're going to use if she does go to total before she goes back full time. So that becomes an issue too.
Yeah, because they have to look at 60% of what she used to own,
Right.
was earning at the time. So yeah,
Right.
that's another factor. So if she was earning a pharmacist $150,000 a year, they're going to have to find a job that's paying her at least $90,000 a job. And really, with her symptoms, there's no way she's going to be able to do full-time work for anybody. So she's
Right.
lucky that her employer is accommodating her right now, because a lot of employers aren't going to say, sure, come in and work a flexible schedule the way you want when you think you can, because
Sure.
they need, any business, not just pharmacies, need their employees to be reliable and commit to hours to get jobs done, especially $90,000 jobs. Those aren't jobs where you just like, well, I can work Monday and then I'll work Thursday and then I can only work.
Right.
It doesn't work like that in
No.
those high compensatory jobs, which is what this particular client has. So
Sure.
I know you continue to do the claim forms for the claimant and deal
Yeah.
with all the doctors and everything on an ongoing basis, which Unum requires a lot of paperwork. So it's great that the client has you, and congratulations, you're able to get her approved. So
Thank you.
if you're someone out there who has a Unum long-term disability claim, no matter where you live in the country, we're available to assist you. Feel free to reach out to Rachel, myself, any of our long-term disability lawyers, And most importantly, we always offer a free initial phone consultation, so we encourage you to contact us. Hi, I'm Gregory Dell, the managing attorney of Dell Disability Lawyers, and I hope you find the video you just watched helpful. We put these videos out all of the time, and we'd love if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Beyond our videos on our YouTube channel, we also have lots of information available on our website at diattorney.com, and we encourage you to come to our website. The goal is that we want you to be educated about the disability insurance process, and when you get to our website, you'll see that we have information all about your specific disability insurance company, your occupation, and your medical condition. And we've designed our website such that you can easily search our website to find things that you may specifically be looking for. Now, at our website, we have thousands and thousands of pages of information, hundreds of videos that you can search, plus we're building a section of reviews of all the disability insurance companies, and we have the Ask Our Lawyer section where you can go ahead and ask us any questions that you may have. Now, we realize that you may not need us right now, but you may need us in the future to help you with your disability claim, and we think one of the best ways to keep in touch is by clicking the button below and subscribing to our channel. And most importantly, again, no matter where you live in the country, we're always available. Just go ahead and give us a call. We're happy to discuss your claim and let you know immediately if we can help you.